the flexibility that you're able to display and to demonstrate to your employer and to your colleagues will be important. So to that end, we put together a presentation that we want to share with you, but we're going to start first with what we hope is just kind of a humorous way for us to kind of begin this journey and this kind of conversation. So sit tight for a minute, watch this if you haven't already done that, and see what you think. We think this is kind of an interesting way to talk about this.
Is it playing, Colleen?
Pardon?
Is it playing? Are you guys seeing it? No. Hold on.
No, it's not playing for me.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if I can get it to work.
Let's see.
All right, Colleen, I'm going to stop sharing your screen for a second.
Yep.
Oh, it's saying the page isn't available.
Hang on a second. Well, I'm going to say this out loud. This is an excellent example of what's been happening, right, for most of us.
Okay, I think I can get it. Can you guys see that? Yeah, this is the one, right, Colleen?
That's it.
Yes, it's playing now. No volume.
Well, we may have to abort the mission.
Joanne, when you press share, are there two little boxes at the bottom that you can click on?
Let's see.
Stop sharing and press share again. See if these
Okay.
two boxes come up that allow you to share your sound.
Like
Oh,
multiple
okay.
participants.
It's the hard way. It's not
Oh,
that
yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Rosemary.
I have to address the lack of focus at times.
Can you hear it now, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, guys, thanks for joining us. Just keen to have a chat about where we are, the situation at the moment. I think you're both there. Olive, hi, thanks for joining us. Mabel, you are connected, but you need to start your video. Down at the bottom of the screen, a little with the camera. It looks like a biscuit. You just nudge it with your nose. You should. There we are. You don't have to be so close. You want to move back a bit. All right, thanks. Right, so basically an update as to where we are. I can see you both look worried, but the good news from head office is that neither of you is going to be furloughed, but we have to try and repay that loyalty with some of our own. I know that's supposed to be a strength of yours. So what we're looking for, what management are looking for are ideas. Sorry, Mabel, this is one of the things that we have to address, the lack of focus at times, because well, there's the inappropriate stuff with Kevin the Doberman from accounts as well, but one thing at a time. So there are things that we have to try and improve on. Well, I'm uncomfortable with the chat as well, but maybe you switched off the camera again. Can you switch it back on? You switch the video? Right. Yeah. Okay, the annual report. We pretty much ruined the sofas. 913 squirrels chased, none caught, so not a good return. So again, thanks to... So Mabel, if you're going to do that, could you just switch off the video function again so we don't have to see it? Right, while Mabel's away, Olive, good news, you will be receiving a small bonus for slightly better behaviour. Okay, Mabel, I'm going to chat in a minute. I'm going to put you on mute so I can talk to Olive. Right, Olive, I've got a message from management, which I have to read out. You're a good dog. Yes, you are. Who's a good dog? You're a good dog. I'm glad it makes you happy. Okay, will you just keep up the good work? And thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a walk. Right, Mabel, if you could just a bit of an example from our follow her lead. Are you falling asleep while we're having this chat? This is all part of the problem that we've got to sort. He's gone. Gone. Unbelievable. We should sack her. We should definitely sack her. She didn't get such good results.
All righty. So that is just a cute way of showing some issues that you might face. Hopefully nobody falls asleep on their Zoom calls. Oh, I gotta get rid of that. See, I'm not very computer savvy, which is what we're going to talk about. Okay, there we go. There we go. All righty. So the first thing we're going to talk about is keeping a schedule. Some of this might seem, that basic or that you would understand it, but it hopefully gets you thinking about what's going to work for you. You want to act as though you're heading to work every day. You want to get up at a certain time. You want to be prepared. You want to be dressed. You want to make sure that you are, putting your best foot forward, because you will not get a second chance to make a first impression. So make sure that and also keeping the boundaries, putting your work away when you're done. If you have to work a little late, you certainly want to do that, but you want to set some parameters for yourself, because working from remotely, you can go well into the nights and on the weekends, and you want to make sure of that.
No, absolutely. And for those of you who have been taking classes remotely and working from home and doing various things by Zoom and by phone and all kinds of video conferencing, we know that setting up a workspace is really helpful. So to the extent that you are able, and not everyone can, find a space that you are going to dedicate to your job this summer. Set it up as if you would an office in a bricks and mortar building. So your materials in advance. One of the things that we know is that if you don't just hurry around looking for things, it'll be easier for you to start work when you're supposed to be starting and have everything at your fingertips. So that includes, making sure that you have your chargers for your phone and your laptop. I mean, most of us have been in a situation where, we're on a phone call and then all of a sudden, we're starting to, get down below 10%. So make sure you have all the materials that you need assembled. If you have a workspace that you can dedicate, that's great. If you have to have a movable desk, then you need to think about that and where you're going to be best suited in your home or in your apartment.
I had mentioned getting dressed, so I just want to kind of go back to that. Besides all the videos that you've seen where people are only dressed from the top up and they accidentally get up, it does happen. It happened to a student at a different law school when he was interviewing. He had put on the suit, the jacket, the tie, and the boxers, and then actually got up to go get something, forgetting he had the boxers on. So thank goodness it wasn't our law school, but it did happen at another one. But besides that, getting up and looking professional, studies have shown that you will be more productive. In the Casey household, we have everybody working from home right now, so I'm going to draw on some of those situations, but my husband's downstairs in an office, and I rotate my office space as some children don't get up until noon. But whenever I'm giving a presentation, I'm fully dressed, heels and all, and they make fun of me because they can hear me clapping around downstairs. But it just puts me more in the mindset to give a presentation. So keep that in mind. It's great to sit in sweats and things like that. But if you're meeting with your boss or you have a presentation, you might want to think about how you're going to present in the best way that works for you.
Yeah, and to that point, I think Joanne's point is very funny. My husband and I are both working from home. He actually occupies the upstairs study, and I have taken over one of our grown son's bedrooms. But very early on, working remotely, I'll just say to you, I walked upstairs to take something from the printer, and when I walked upstairs behind my husband, I just leaned behind him, because we're not used to working together at home, kissed him on the neck, grabbed the papers, came back downstairs. Moments later, he came down and said, "It's a good thing my boss knows you." I was like, "What?" He said, "Well, he saw you kiss me on the neck." He just said, "Glad it was your wife." So again, be mindful of what you're doing and who sees what you're doing. And one of the issues that we wanted to make sure we all kind of just talked about, although it seems common sense, is to really the tech savviness, the really thinking about what you need to do to be prepared. And it's difficult. Reliable internet service. Mine's been going in and out today. So I gave that heads up to Joanne this morning. Make sure you have a secure connection and that you have a reliable computer or laptop. If you need to check things out in advance and maybe change your equipment up before you start working, that may be something you have to attend to. Confirm in advance you have a good microphone. Make sure that you are also checking with your employer in advance. What video conferencing tools are they using? And do you need to learn to use something other than Zoom? We've all become real accustomed to that, but there are lots of different platforms out there. So ask in advance so that you can try, prep, and plan. In addition to that, just think about and know that taking your employer's data, security protocols, and privacy very seriously. So, where you're using your laptop and what information you're accessing. For those of you that will be connected with very large employers, you really want to keep that front of mind. And then lastly, just some sort of tech purchases that we have all kind of experienced, and I think you probably have too, but just think about this from a work perspective. Sometimes it's a headset or a headphone. Sometimes it's just a wireless mouse. Sometimes it's a widescreen monitor. Things that will help you to do your job a little bit more effectively and efficiently.
And do not take any tech advice from me, obviously. You also want to avoid distractions. You want to make sure, some of you are home alone, some of you are with other people. You want to make sure that people are aware of your setting and what you have going on. I say, like, every time my husband is done with work, he makes a big announcement that he's done, he's off for the day, and he'll even come upstairs and be like, I'm done, especially on Fridays. And I'm like, not so much me. I'm still working. The other day we were doing a presentation for admissions, and lawn person was coming to mow, and she had to run down and tell him he had to come on a different day. So, just trying to plan ahead and remembering that you could be, people could Zoom you at any time too, or Skype you. I get Skypes, Lima can attest to this. Lima will Skype me, and I finally learned how to use a Skype video because I kept hanging up on her. But at a notice, your boss could Skype you and, Skype video chat. So just be prepared and try to avoid any distractions.
Yeah, and such a great point. And when we're talking about communication, one of the funny things that that Joanne and I discussed the other day, and I don't know how many of you students have had this experience, but you're about to get on a call and go on a call in like half an hour or so, and you decide, I'm going to go out for a walk, or I'm going to get some fresh air, and you come back in and you're a little bit disheveled. Take the time before you are communicating with others, especially via video conferencing, to just get cleaned up for that call. Because that communication, those first impressions, as Joanne has mentioned, are really essential. You don't get a second chance. And sometimes you'll be on a call or conference with someone that you don't know. And that's going to happen a lot in work settings, that you may be drawn into something and you want to be prepared. You want to put your best foot forward. So communication tips that we think are important. When you receive an email or a message from your supervisor, respond as soon as you can. That's just a critical thing when you're starting out in any new job or with working with your colleagues. Do the best you can to respond. Make sure your manager and your colleagues know what projects you're working on. And when you're asked, advocate for yourself. Give information that you think is going to be helpful for someone so that all the team members can know where they're at in a particular project. If you need to, practice in advance with phone and video conference meetings with your friends or with one of us. We are happy to help you. Despite our little glitch in the beginning of this, we've been doing this all for the last 10 weeks as well. So take advantage of practicing, but in terms of your own communication, think about how your supervisor and your colleagues want to hear from you. It may be a once-a-day check-in. It may be a twice-a-week check-in. Find out what's going to work for your organization, and then you may have to save some information and not push it out every single day or when you think of it, but reserve that information for those checkpoints that have already been established. You're also going to ask about preferences for contact. Some people are going to be great with just pick up the phone, or they want to set up a video conference meeting, or they want to do the Skype for Business or some other platform. Just ask so that you can anticipate, practice, and then learn to be flexible, especially if people have different preferences in terms of what they like to use. Be patient. You know, we've been saying that a lot when we're working with students, but be patient, be kind, be flexible, but be prepared. You know, take notes. If you're going into a meeting, regardless of the platform, take some notes so that you can go back to those. And lastly, from a communication standpoint, and I hope that everybody can appreciate this, but your verbal communication and your written communication are important. So proof your work. We say that all the time. It's never been more important. Proof your work. Don't make someone else have to have that heavy lift. So before you send something out, check it out, and then send it along and ask for feedback. So those are some of the brief communication tips that we know going into any summer assignment is important and in general.
And I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. Is also remember that this is new for you. This also may be new for your supervisor. They may not be used to working remotely. And when Colleen asked, you know, to ask for feedback, if you're not getting it and it's been a while, you know, it's okay to ask for that. And there's also a fine line between, you know, you want to make sure that you're doing your work and you're advocating for yourself and presenting it. But, you know, we've read some articles where, you know, there are people that are just trying too hard to be the standout star all the time, too hard to prove that they really are working from home, you know, that they are constantly doing what they're supposed to be doing. If you're doing your job and you're doing it well, it will show up. It will come across to your supervisors. So just be cognizant of that a little bit, and try to stay organized. It's very easy when you're at home to kind of get off track. There are other things to do in the home. There are things that you can take a few minutes to do here and there, and then one little chore turns into another. You know, you are a new employee. You are trying to make a good first impression because you won't get a second chance to do that. So stay organized. Keep your workday set, as we had mentioned before. Keep a to-do list. If you're working on a long-term project, set time aside so that you can work on that project a little bit each day. Use a calendar, because you have more than one supervisor or people that you're working with, colleagues, and you have different times that you have to meet with them and different programs to attend. It can get very distracting. You guys, some of you are doing this for credit, so you'll have your class that you'll need to take. You know, make sure you keep a calendar and that you're keeping everything set and as organized as possible, because when you're not in an office setting and you're at home, it can be a little easier to get off the beaten track.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to share with you that one of the webinars that we were able to access, and I think some students did as well, is the Equal Justice Works. Did a wonderful presentation just talking about what it's like to work remotely and how to work with your colleagues. And a couple of the things that they mentioned have a lot to do with, we miss those opportunities just to pop into someone's office, to ask a quick question, to build collegiality, to build teamwork. And those opportunities are missing in this setting. But there are some other ways to do that. And I think in terms of asking questions, you do have to be mindful of people's time. But if you've got a question, and especially if it relates to the work that you're doing or research that you're working on, you need to reach out and ask. So you may have to, as we mentioned before, reserve a few questions so that you're asking them all at once. And you may have to ask for how your progress is going to be evaluated. And Joanne mentioned that before. You don't want to seem like you're so overeager that you are bothering someone, but at the same time, you want to know, how am I doing? You're not going to get a grade for your work assignment, but it will be helpful to get some sense of feedback. And if it's not forthcoming, there may be ways that you and your supervisor could build in more opportunities. So it may be a weekly or a bi-weekly meeting that you can request to just check in. You're learning, they're learning, and most of the organizations, like the folks from Equal Justice Works, were really candid about, it's really important for them to bring the lifeblood back into the organization, and interns do that. So enthusiasm, drive, commitment, determination, passion, in addition to your work product, all of those components are going to go into how someone's going to evaluate you and your contributions this summer. So just keep that in mind. As you're asking questions, it's really about what you're demonstrating about who you are as an individual.
To give you an example of what Colleen just said, my oldest daughter had just started a new job, and day one she was in the office, and day two they went remote. And, in the beginning, the supervisor, was giving her some great feedback, and then it kind of stopped a little bit. And it's just because they got busy, and she was worried. She wasn't sure she was doing a good job. So together we developed a very professional email, expressing her excitement about the new position, but then asking, is there any feedback that they could provide her? And her supervisor came back and said, thank goodness that she was meeting his expectations, but he said, the question is, I should have asked you, is there anything you need? And that was just, she opened the lines of communication. She did it in a professional way, and it was appreciated. So if you feel like you just need that feedback, there are ways to ask for it. You don't need to ask for it every day, but just to kind of open those lines of communications. And I read someplace, or I think it was on a commercial, where it says, social distancing doesn't mean being socially distant. So to the extent that you can engage in other activities that your employer is doing that show your personality, get to know your colleagues to the extent that you can. If there are things outside of work that they're doing remotely, or should they go, back on site, make sure that you're present, that you're participating, that your nonverbals are showing that you're engaged and enjoying the work. And to the extent that you can, that's not as easily to do. Again, as Colleen said, you can't just pop into someone's office. You can't talk, over lunch. So if there's ways that you can show that, I definitely encourage you to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Joanne and I and some of our other colleagues have been on some really interesting national calls, and some of the things that employers are thinking about doing to engage their interns during the summer are amazing. Some are going to invite students to do virtual museum tours. Others are doing, pub crawls. I mean, there are a variety of different kinds of events that people are really trying to include to make internship experiences as robust and interesting as possible in the bigger sense, not just the work that happens every day. And so, we couldn't say that more. It's really important that you are engaging and participating and enjoying the process. I think that is going to be important for all of us. To that end, one of the things that we also heard about was to develop your executive presence. And if you haven't heard that terminology yet, we want you to embrace it, because I think each of us has really been thinking about a variety of things related to our professionalism, our reputations. As we've said, first impressions. This is a great example of what not to do, and I'm going to show you right now. So this is our youngest son's bedroom. He is an adult and does not live here anymore, but we still have some remnants of his life. This morning, I realized there were some things in my background that I probably shouldn't have that are on his shelf. So I was moving some things around and thinking about my background. Most of our video conferencing has been with our peers, people who know us well. But when you're going into a setting where people don't know you, they haven't had the benefit of sometimes even seeing you in person for many months, if they interviewed you in person at all. So I want you to think about your background, your backdrop, the setting. We don't all have the luxury of changing the space that we're working in, but think about using some kind of a background for your video conferencing so that you are professional. Think about what you have you can focus on, what's within your control. So a couple of things besides your backdrop that you can select would be your emotions and your behavior. There are many of us that talk with our hands, but it's very distracting. So if you're one of those individuals, put your hands under your legs so that you're not talking with your hands or doing other odd things that we've all adopted in person. But when you're on a screen doing a video conferencing, it's very distracting. Obviously, the way that you're presenting yourself, you are thinking about, you know, I want someone to know that I'm capable, I'm confident, and I can do the work remotely, that I can be trusted. And in addition to that, it's thinking about, you know, what other people are doing when you're talking. In reverse, think about what you are doing when other people are talking. So listen, pay attention. You know, we've all been on calls where people are working and doing other things, and we totally get that. But you're going to be the newbie. You don't want to be that person that's doing this and attending to something else when what you should be doing is listening to the speaker. So those are just a couple of things that when you're thinking about your executive presence and how you're going to create a reputation for yourself at a distance for a time being, that you want people to know when they meet you in person, wow, you know what? They're not perfect, but this person really was trying to do the best that they could. So punting to another concept, which is a little bit on the same line, is flexibility. And even though, you know, we've all had to do all kinds of crazy things during this time, just remember to be patient. You know, I don't know how many of you have had this experience, but cats walking across the screen, dogs barking, kids crying. I mean, we've all heard a lot of life going on. So be patient. There are a lot of folks that are dealing with a lot of difficult situations, and we don't want to minimize that at all. So when you're demonstrating your flexibility, you're also demonstrating your compassion for other people. And I think that that's a very important component, especially if you're going into some cities where there have been a lot of significant changes and loss. So we want you to be mindful of that as you're moving along.
And that's a great segue into being respectful of others as they have gone through the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of people, we talk about meeting people where they're at with this. A lot of people have different ideas, experiences that have revolved around COVID-19. And as we start to ease some restrictions, I've actually seen that. I've seen it firsthand where, you know, some people are very strict with following the rules, and other people who have been not complimentary to them for doing that because they have a different idea of what should be done and how it should be done. And everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but you want to be respectful of where people are at with this pandemic and how they're dealing with it. You know, what loss they've had, you may not even know. So it'll come up a lot. It'll come up a lot. And I just want you to be mindful of that. Just want you to be mindful that we're not all in the same place when it comes to the coronavirus. The other thing I was going to say, which I just kind of lost my, it was something that you had said, Colleen, but it will come to me, I promise. Oh, what I was going to say is, you know, for some of you who maybe haven't secured a summer job yet or in the process of doing it, you know, we're still here for you, and still jobs being posted, and just to stay in touch with your counselor as you're dealing with all of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've been talking to students now for almost 10 full weeks and doing phone appointments and video conferencing. And so if you haven't had an opportunity to do that and you're prepping to go into an internship this summer, if it's an abbreviated internship with a large employer or a small employer or a not-for-profit, you know, every setting is going to dictate some differences. And so some of the tips we've given you today are somewhat generic. But if you've got specific questions about how you're preparing, you know, what to say or how to plan for an onboarding or what to wear, you can ask us. But we also want you to know supervisors and employers that we've been hearing from across the country are saying, communicate with us. We're trying to do the best we can. But if you've got some questions, it may be something we have not even thought about. And so to that end, to make this experience the best possible, you're going to be a contributing pioneer in this, if you will. And we think that that's an important part of your development. You're going to come out of this with information, with stories, with knowledge, and sort of going forward with that is going to put you in a position to be a really strong leader someday. And we appreciate this time that you've given us for this half an hour for this very brief conversation. But follow up with your counselor if you need to. And I think we can open this to some questions if people have any. But if you don't, that's okay too.
Does anyone have any questions? I have one from Jennifer. I'm starting a summer field placement at a law firm where I've never worked before. Do you have any guidance on early training stages, which may be remote? That's a good question, Jennifer. So, Colleen, you want to go first?
Well, I was just thinking about listening to some of the onboarding that some larger law firms in particular. Some have really thought very hard about how to do onboarding. And I think one of the things that we're hearing from is take advantage of everything that's offered. That's the first thing. Some you may think it's optional, but every training or onboarding opportunity is going to be really important. So sign up for everything you can. That's a very important piece. In terms of the training itself, you're going to find, just as you did with this program that we started, there are glitches, there are hiccups. Try not to be judgmental, because I think that's going to be really helpful for you as an individual in learning about different styles, different individuals, and some of the challenges, quite frankly, that people have been experiencing that are real, in real time, with technology, with tools, with individual circumstances. So in terms of your training, I think it's going to be important that you follow up if you've got a question, and if you've got some of your own issues that are related to technology, find out who the IT people are in that organization and get to know them. Get the email. And most people have been wonderfully accommodating, but that's an important part of this process. Get help where you need it.
And that's great, Colleen. I think, Jennifer, too, you'll find that employers might be a little bit more organized than they would have been if it was in person. They're coming up with some best practices on their own side of how they can make sure that these experiences are rich and fulfilling for you as well. But as Colleen said, ask questions, find out how they want to communicate, and have a list of questions. How do you want to hear from me? What technology do you use? So on the first day, if they're not answered, you can ask those questions.
Absolutely. And to that end, some organizations encourage students and interns to develop learning plans. Sometimes organizations really want to know, do you have your own set of goals and expectations for the summer? We would almost always, when we're coaching students for going on summer internships, it's think about what you want to learn. Think about what you want to achieve by the end of the summer that may be a personal or professional goals. Talk about your goals with your supervisor. If they're open and they're interested in what you're hoping to attain, that can be a great platform for you to then think about, how do I put together some objectives for the summer so that I can see if I'm meeting my own goals for what I want to learn this summer.
Any other questions? Anyone else? All right. Well, as you go ahead,
I was just going to say, Joanne, beforehand, are there any concerns? Because we've been talking to students individually, and quite frankly, there are all kinds of concerns. I think one of them has been, what if the employer is to go back into the office? How do I deal with that if I'm not ready? So our best advice with that is talk to us if you need to just talk through something, but just don't jump to conclusions or have expectations that may not be realistic.
That's a great point, Colleen. And as I've been telling my students and even my own children is that, we can't control everything. A lot of what's going on right now is out of our control. So let's focus on what we can control.
Yeah.
What you can control is being prepared and professional before you head into your remote summer position. That's what you can control. Anything that's out of our control, you'll find out and you'll process and you'll deal with it. And your counselors will be here to help you if you need any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Humor is important. Part of the reason we showed you that video is because we've been laughing a lot. The circumstances are not funny, but humor is an important way for you to deal with stress and for you to help yourself. So, we appreciate you spending the time with us today. Wish you well. If you've got other questions, you can always send us those. We're going to send you out kind of a quick handout of some of the information we shared today. So thank you and take care. Good luck. Oh, we got one more question.
Jessica actually has a great recommendation, Google Keep for to-do lists.
Awesome.
That's great, Jessica. Thank you for that.
Awesome. I mean,
you will all be known as the classes that have been resilient, that have gotten through COVID-19, and you'll be able to share with employers next year how you did that. And that's more impressive than anything else that you've done. Or equally as impressive, maybe not more, but equally as impressive. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, well, we wish you well.
And Professor Mann said notes in your phone. That's how I do it too. So
yeah. That's great.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Be well. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.